All right. Well, first, let me thank you. Thank all of you for joining me today with Jacqueline Way, the founder of 365 Give. She is a dedicated world changer, and today she's going to discuss how to bring happiness to the table, from the boardroom table to the dining room table. So very excited to listen to Jacqueline and learn from her. And I'm Linda Fisk, the CEO of Leadership Global, and I am absolutely thrilled to welcome all of you to today's program. Now, for those of you that are not Leadership Global members, I want to let you know about the organization that's sponsoring today's conversation. Leadership Global is the most impactful community of extraordinary women in the world. We unleash the full potential of high-performing and growth-oriented leaders in a confidential, supportive, and private community. Leadership Global helps members accelerate their success by defining their vision, growing their leadership, expanding their influence, and leaving a lasting legacy. We have a myriad of media opportunities that we make available to Leadership Global members, and I would love to introduce you to this incredible community of leaders where we celebrate their triumphs and we expand their thought leadership. If you're interested in learning more about this remarkable community of women leading across business, entertainment, and politics, please reach out. Now, let's jump into today's topic. You know, one of the most underrated life achievements is simply happiness. We strive for what we perceive as success, both personally and professionally. But just focusing on some elusive ideal of what success is can actually lead to burnout, stress, and even illness. We often sacrifice our own well-being and our own mental health to achieve some sort of level of perceived success. So today, you're invited to listen in as Jacqueline Way, founder of 365 Give and dedicated world changer, explains how to make happiness your top priority, from the boardroom table to your dining room table, and create a truly successful and rewarding life. Learn how our brains and our bodies work when we make happiness a top priority, and how that actually helps us to increase productivity, creativity, and even longevity. Learn the importance of how to build happiness and well-being in your life, and how to bring it to your business, to your employees, and even to your family. Jacqueline will explain how the very simple act of making happiness a priority will impact your business financially, and how it can carry over to your lives at home to actually help your children. Now, before we jump in, let me tell you a little bit about Jacqueline Way. As I said, she has been an absolute inspiration today, and she truly is a dedicated world changer. Her sole purpose is to inspire and educate the hearts and minds of people globally to create happy, meaningful lives. And I can't imagine a better purpose on earth. She expresses her purpose through her charitable organization, 365 Give, which was created and inspired by her son, with a really simple vision to change the world one give, one day at a time. She is a world-renowned keynote speaker and one of the most watched TEDx talks on how to be happy every day, because it will change the world. Every day, she is committed to living the highest expression of who she is as a human being through her work and through touching lives all around this planet. It's amazing. And we are so lucky to have Jacqueline with us. Jacqueline, thank you for being here.
Good morning, Linda. You can do my introduction anytime.
Thank you so much. Jacqueline, we're so thrilled to have you with us. And I got to tell you, just to get it started, because I've had the privilege and honor of knowing you for a while and hearing your story, but I'd love to introduce you to this amazing group of inspirational leaders. So tell us a little bit about your journey. What led you to have such passion around making happiness a priority, which led to the creation of 365 Give?
Well, thank you so much, Linda. And good morning, everybody. I'm so excited to be with so many amazing women and friends that are here. So thank you, Linda, for the opportunity. We're going to have a really interesting conversation today, because what really led me to happiness was my son. I am the parent of 3 beautiful adopted boys. And, being a parent, and for those of you that are a parent or aunt or uncle, or sorry, aunt or uncle, I say uncle, we do have a few men here, is, one of the things that was a priority for me is how was I going to create a happy life for my children? And not knowing it at the time, the journey that I set myself on with my son has led me down to not only question happiness for myself, but really question it for the world around us and how we can help create a happier, healthier world for not only ourselves, but everyone else on this planet. And so my journey started with my son when he was just 3 years old. And I decided that if I wanted to have a happy, kind, compassionate child, I was going to have to teach him to do that. We forget that our children need to learn about happiness, and they need to learn to be compassionate, loving children in our world. So when he was 3 years old, we started a little journey, and we did one thing to give back to the world every day for 365 days. It had to be so simple, a 3-year-old could do it. And it had to be really close to home, really simple, something we could incorporate into our daily lives every day. At the time, I decided to create, for those of you that have been or similar aged I am, I created a blog around it because we didn't have something called Instagram then. And I started writing about our little stories of how we were giving every day. And the really neat thing about it was it was really meant just for our family and friends. And people started joining us from all over the world. People started reading the blog, commenting, sharing, and actually participating with us, which was the biggest surprise because they were inspired by my son, Nick. And they thought, if a 3-year-old can do this, so can I. And we got very blessed that as our blog grew, we started, Twitter was the thing at the time to inspire people. And as people started joining us from all over the world, what wasn't even meant to be an organization or a movement or anything else really became something that grew innately and automatically. That ripple effect of giving started to grow. We very quickly, after 365 days of giving, we changed it into an educational program for children because I thought if my son can learn to give, we could see the happiness that had grown in him. We could do this with other children. And we turned it into an educational program for children that could be implemented in schools. We call it the 365 Give Challenge. Today, that program has been implemented into over 400 schools globally. And really what happened was not only did we do it in schools, but we realized the program that we had created was really for everyone. Because what we came to understand is that giving automatically makes people happy. And that was my own journey of happiness that started. I didn't start 365 Give to become some happiness expert, but it automatically became that way because we realized the benefits of giving, not only for the world around us through the small actions that we do, but how giving really makes us happier people, makes us physically and mentally healthier, and how that can affect everyone around us. And that starts at our families at home. Really, it starts with us, but it ripples out to our families and out to work as well. So now what I really talk about is how can we rethink happiness? Because, we have all, literally most people in the world have been on that chase for happiness, that next great thing, when my business gets to that next place, when I get married, when I have children. It's always the when I get there, then I'm going to find my happiness. And what I really want to talk about today is how can we reverse engineer that? Because when we get happy, then everything else will start to fall into place, because it's almost like happy is that magic remedy, the magic pill that does exactly what Linda said. It makes us more creative. It makes us more intuitive. It brings to us in our world the things that we want versus us going out and chasing it.
I love that, Jacqueline. So let's talk about how making happiness a priority differs if you're talking about the dynamics in a workplace, or as you said, a boardroom table, as compared to creating happiness at home around your dining room table. Mm-hmm. Are the dynamics the same or are they slightly different? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, really happiness starts with all of us. And we've all heard the sayings, happiness comes from the inside out. And what we need to realize is the first thing that we need to do is for ourselves, what does that mean to us? And many of you may have experienced this. I certainly experienced it during COVID. I mean, I'm a keynote speaker on happiness. And during COVID, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, homeschooling my children, trying to work, pouring that first drink at 4 o'clock because somewhere in the world it was 5. And I had to sit back and I really had to go, okay, I'm in the hamster wheel. I'm literally stuck. I know every step. I know those 12 steps to happiness and all of those things, but I had to really sit back and reframe for myself and answer that question. What is it that really makes me happy? And if there's one thing I could suggest to people is you need to first stand back and do that for yourself and take some time to define what that means to yourself. And I don't mean, $100,000 is going to make me happy. A new pair of red shoes is going to make me happy. A new partner in my life is going to make me happy. But happiness is right in our now, and it has to start in our moments in every day. So when you wake up in the morning, what is it that defines happiness for you? And I had to really stand back and go, okay, I'm lying in my bed. What are the things that make me happy? Well, you know what? It literally started with my bed and my pillow. And I realized that when I get up in the morning, I can look out my window and go, you know what? The flowers in my garden make me happy. I had to go down to the core of the simple things in my life. Exercise makes me happy. Walking my dog makes me happy. Meditation makes me happy. And I had to go back and answer those questions for myself first so that I could bring that out to the world around me. So the first thing I suggest to you is sit down, be honest with yourself and go, what is it that makes me happy? My work makes me really happy. It's something that brings me a lot of joy in my own life. Is that for you making you happy and bringing you happiness in your world? Or are you getting stuck in the stresses of, am I doing enough? Am I producing enough? Am I making enough sales? Am I inspiring enough people? I question that in myself on a regular basis. And then this is the way that we can start to bring this out to our families and bring this to work. Are we teaching our children? I want you to all go back in your lives. Did your parents ever sit down with you and say, what makes you happy? Did we ever actually teach our children emotional intelligence? It's the buzzword that's going on, but are we teaching our children the difference between what brings them happiness other than their iPads and buying stuff, which is a big one for us. We're also stuck in that hamster wheel with our children. How can we help them discover that for themselves? Is those moments in their day that bring them happiness. One of the greatest lessons I've learned from my children, and my children all have neurodiversities that have taught me my greatest lessons in my life. And my middle son, who struggles with the outside world a lot and emotional regulation, taught me my greatest lesson. And that one is that happiness comes just one smile at a time, moment by moment, that creates a happy life. Because what we forget to realize is that we look at happiness as this big picture, but really happiness is a moment by moment experience in our life. It's not going to happen all day, every day. We can't sit in meditation and close ourselves off from the outside world. But how can we start to find it moment by moment in our life? Know when we're in a happy place, but also recognizing those times that we're not. And that's the biggest thing, is we sometimes get stuck in not happiness, but we don't take the time to recognize it, make a conscious effort to go, okay, I'm not in a good place right now. What are the things that I can do, the steps that I can take, or those moments that I can go, okay, you know what? I need to get out of my head and I need to get more into the things that make me happy and start to make that mind shift in our heads, because really happiness is something that we create in our heads and that we can get stuck in a lot. So when we start this at home and practices, then we can move it to work.
I love that simple definition. It's a moment by moment sort of experience, this idea of happiness. Earlier, you mentioned there are 12 steps to happiness. Do you want to sort of walk us through those steps and the real learning that you have initiated for others around this idea of finding happiness?
Absolutely. First thing I always talk about is, first of all, you need to understand happiness and what happens in our brains and bodies, because this is such a key component. And most people, when we talk about well-being and happiness, they actually don't even understand how your bodies work. So the first thing I just want to talk about is what I call your daily dose of happiness. And when I learned this component for myself, it's when I started to learn to manage happiness for myself. So DOSE stands for me. It's an acronym so that I can remember what it all stands for. So DOSE is dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and your endorphins. So dopamine is our reward system in our brains and our bodies. It's part of a neurotransmitter that happens in our brains and in our hearts as well. So dopamine is that reward system when you cross the finish line, when something fabulous might happen at work that you've accomplished. That's that sense of dopamine that fires in our body. The neat thing about dopamine is that you can actually learn to fire it off yourself, and in simpler ways than you imagine. So that could be as simple as, Linda, you'd be the master at this, is setting small goals to achieve them throughout your day. You can start to create that dopamine in your body as simply as that. Oxytocin, the next one, is your love hormone, that hug that you get. And you can do this again, and this is something with your children. It's that hug that they need. You know, when our children are dysregulated, we can give them a hug that sets off oxytocin in their bodies. You can do this with your pet at home. You can do this with small acts of giving in your life and kindness that will also create that in your own life. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about giving in a minute. And the next one after that is your serotonin. Serotonin is actually your body's happy transmitter. And that's a big component of when you start to find the little things in your life. Gratitude is a big one. You can set off serotonin in your body very easily and naturally. So if you start your day with gratitude and end your day with gratitude, you're setting off that serotonin in your body. Last one is your endorphins. People have heard of the runner's high. When you exercise, you can set off your endorphins. But you can also do this through meditation, through getting out for a walk. You don't have to be a marathon runner to get the endorphins going in your body. So that's how we remember how we actually use our body and our brains to stimulate different parts of our body that are going to set these off. Now, when we talk about things like giving and kindness, it's one of the things that you can use that actually fire and wire all four of these simultaneously in your body. So if you're not a runner, you don't have to go out running every day. Instead, you could bake cookies and give them to your neighbor. Instead, you could, as you're walking to work every day, if you work in a core of a city, you could feed a homeless person. You can call a friend and just tell them how grateful you are for them. It's those little acts. Buy somebody a coffee and lime. Every morning when you go to work, go pick up garbage. I'm a big walker. So when I go out walking, I pick up garbage as I go along. These are going to start to set off this whole range of daily dose of happiness for you. And it's a great way to kind of stimulate it in your body and then start to recognize it. And that's the big key, is when you start to use these chemicals, these hormones in your body, is taking the time to recognize it, to go, oh, look how I'm feeling. Because that's the moment that we can grab onto and use to propel us through our day and start recognizing it. So that's one of the big steps that I would say that you need to start doing, is understanding more about your daily dose of happiness, how it works in your brain and body, and then start activating it throughout your day and taking that time to recognize it. So I always say, start with gratitude in your day. If you can start to ignite this in your body as soon as you wake up in your morning, then you're starting to set your day on a happiness track for the day. You have to set that intention, and happiness has to be intentional. So when you're waking up, you start with your gratitude. You set your first intention of not how many things I can get done on my to-do list for the day, but you set your intention for how can I start to recognize happiness in my day every day. Make that the top priority for your day as you go through it. And then go through your day and start to, moment by moment, go, okay, where am I at? Where am I feeling? If you're starting to feel the stress and anxiety in your day, you can literally take a 3-minute break in your day and do something called eye tracking. And it's kind of a really neat thing that you can do where you can step outside, look up at the sky and look around, start tracking your eyes back and forth, and you can actually reset yourself, believe it or not, for happiness. And just getting out and looking up and around resets your brain from your stress response or where you're getting stuck and losing your creative mojo. And in 2 or 3 minutes of getting out and looking up, you can literally reset your brain for the next kind of focus time that you need to do. So these are some of the little steps that you can do every day, but it's taking the time to know, okay, what's good for me? I know for me that if I'm getting stuck in stress or an anxious moment or my creative brain isn't working at all, I can step out into my garden, do some gardening for 15 minutes. I happen to work from home, and that will reset. Do you need to get out for a walk? But these are the things that you need to recognize in yourself. Start creating that list for yourself, going, okay, how can I reset my brain? Because that's exactly what we need to do to make things more creative, to get our juices flowing again throughout our day, and taking that time to take those breaks to create that reset. So that's the first thing I would say is find those things for yourself and create those breaks throughout your day.
Wow, that is, it sounds so simple, Jacqueline.
It's a practice, though. It's the practice.
It's a practice. Exactly. It takes intention, and it takes purpose, and it takes training. So I love that. Thank you so much for talking to us a little bit about how to increase productivity, creativity, and how our brains and body work when we make happiness a top priority. I want to go back to 365 Give now and talk a little bit about the initial purpose for 365 Give and how that's actually grown and evolved over time. And what is your mission and vision now with 365 Give versus where it began?
It's a funny thing. I'm sorry, I'm getting choked on my words a little bit, because really when I started, the simple purpose was, to teach my son. And I always thought, you know what, if we change the world as we went along, then that's an amazing thing. I think probably for most of you with your businesses and as you move forward, we never look at where we think we're going to be in 10 years. We might have a bigger goal, but as you watch it evolve and what you learn along the way is really the most important part when we reflect back and go, look where I started and look how far I've come. I think the most important part for me is when I realize now that I can teach and what I've learned along my path, and teaching people more about well-being and happiness is really the big keys. Our world is struggling. We are now at a place, and I don't know if anybody has seen it recently, but the World Happiness Report came out, and the world happiness levels have dropped by 14% over the last year. And obviously we're not surprised by that, but happiness can actually be measured at a global scale. And the problem with this is that as our world goes into more stress and anxiety and depression, not only does that mean something to individuals, but it means something to the world as whole, because the more people are stuck in places of stress and anxiety and depression, it affects all of us, because people are no longer able to move towards our biggest global crisis, like climate change, hunger, poverty, war. I mean, it just keeps going on so many levels. All of these bigger global crises affect all of us. I'm just come out of a heat wave in Canada. That's our hottest temperatures in the world. And now everybody's talking about climate change in Canada. It's like, it's shocking to me that we all know about these big global crises. And if we all took the time to do little things to work towards resolving them, it would change the world for all of us. And that's the big goal that I look at. Is it's not about our leaders standing up and changing the world, and it is about them, but it's about all of us individually. It doesn't even have to be 7 billion people. If we create that paradigm shift where it's 3.5 billion people start working towards creating change in our life in small ways every day, that creates the shift. Because when we do small things to give back every day, that ripples to 3 people at least. That's a measurement that they've been able to create. And that's the way we create the shift that our world needs, because if not, we're on a path of self-destruction, unfortunately, for not ourselves, but for our planet. So for me, it's really, what do we all need to do to set on a path to reduce the stress and anxiety, to stop the health crises that are going on in the world, and to move our world forward to become one humanity so that we can start actually creating the world that we all want to live in. I mean, listen, we all want to live in peace. We all want to live in a world that's sustainable. We all want to do these things, but unless we all take action every day towards it, and I'm talking simple things are never going to change. The spiral is going to continue and nothing's going to shift in our world. So my big picture is how do I inspire you to start incorporating giving in your own life, in your own families, and in your businesses, so that we actually have a planet that we get to share 50 years from now, and that our children have 50 years from now. And that's our timeline we're looking at now. It's no longer 100 years from now. It's that 30 to 50 years. Either we may or may not all be here.
Wow, that is a real dose of reality there, Jacqueline. Thank you. And I love how 365 Give started by an opportunity to teach your children about how giving creates happiness, and how that has really become a worldwide movement through school systems, teaching all kids the impact of a simple act of giving and how that can have global ramifications. So let's bring it back home. How can the simple act of making happiness a priority impact a business financially? How can it carry through to the lives at home to help with our children? So when we have intention and purpose around making happiness a priority, help us create the connection between that personal intention, that personal practice, and then the impact it will have on our businesses financially and our lives at home with our kids.
Absolutely. So let's talk about I call it the ROI of happiness, because, I'm talking to a bunch of business women here, and the return on investment is part of our bottom line. So it's not only a part of your bottom line for your business, but it's the bottom line for your life and your family's life as well. So let's take it from the business perspective first. And if you're working with teams within your own business, one of the biggest factors that they have now been able to determine is when you make happiness a priority for your employees and your business, you have the opportunity to increase your bottom line up to 23%. So big numbers. We're not talking little numbers, but big numbers. And here's the reason why. And it's a lot of the things we've already talked about. When you make happiness a priority for your employees, yourself, the first person that it affects is your customers. And now what they're taking a look at is the millennial group, which is one of the biggest purchasers of businesses. And that's whether your business is, listen, it could be a storefront business, you could be a coach, you could do online businesses as well. But that millennial group, 24 to 50 right now, is a big group of people that are your purchasers. And one of the things that's the most important thing to them is what we're talking about now. We're talking about sustainability, well-being, and giving back to the world. And those are big priorities for them on so many levels. So when we talk about happiness, the ways that it's going to help your business are a couple of ways. First, that reflects that when your employees are happiness, they're bringing that right to your customer. When they're bringing that to your customer, that's the ripple effect of happiness that's rubbing off on your customers. Your customers are going to come back because your employees are happy. And that's, when we talk about customer service, people talk about, how you can, do the best for your customer and how you can take care of them properly. If your employees aren't happy, you can give them all of the best practices to take care of your customers. But what really is going to rub off is that energetic feeling that your customers are going to get. When your employees are happy and not stressed, they're automatically going to take really good care of your customers. So that's one of the first parts that are really important. The next part is that you're now, your employees have reduced their own stress. One of the things we didn't talk about with happiness is that when you increase your happiness, you're reducing the cortisol that's running through your body. And that's actually the stress that's running through your body. And what we know about stress is that it makes you sick, it makes you less productive, and it makes you less creative. So they have now been able to track that when your happiness increases and your stress levels decrease, this helps your business because your healthcare costs dramatically drop. Your employee turnover dramatically drops. Your employees are actually at work. They're not taking stress days. They're not taking sick leave. They're not taking all of those items that actually cost your business more money. When your employees are happy, they're not leaving the company. They want to stay with your company. For the larger companies, it costs companies $60,000 in turnover costs for an employee to leave and to bring another one in and train them. So when you're focusing on happiness for your employees, you're reducing your costs of what stress and anxiety and depression costs a company as well. And that's a big part. So now you're bringing your customers in because your employees are radiating the literally good vibes in your company, and you're reducing your costs of what stress and anxiety and depression cost you. So those are the big components. Now, when you bring those stories out and you start making well-being, happiness, and giving part of your company's stories and brand through social media, because listen, we all use the power of social media for our brand these days. When we start sharing these messages, then your customers are literally seeing that well-being and happiness is part of your priority as a company, and that will attract people to your business and who you are, because everybody else is looking for it as well. They want to know how they can be happier and increase their own well-being. And when we start to share those messages with other people, it's going to draw the customers to your business as well.
Wow, that's so powerful. And it all makes so much sense too, Jacqueline, for sure. And I love the idea that making happiness a priority at work means ensuring that you have a group of incredibly happy employees that serve as your brand ambassadors, sharing their happiness and their loyalty to your company with your customers. And that creates almost a chain effect where your customers then are infected with that sense of happiness and that sense of dedication to your brand. I love that. So, I will say, Jacqueline, that to me, this has been a really impactful conversation that has woven some really important science with some important world perspective, with some take-home actionable insight. But I'd love to open up the conversation to those on the phone to ask any questions or to make any comments that you have about your own exploration with happiness. Anywhere you get stuck, anywhere that you feel like you're unable to sort of move past an obstacle that allows you to really embrace happiness, or as you've explored the idea of bringing happiness into your business, into your home, anything you've learned, I'd love to hear that. Nita, you added something to the chat, which I love. And so do you have any comments that you'd like to offer the conversation?
No, I was just going to say, if you don't feel happy, you know what, just put a false smile, and then before you know it, you're going to be smiling. So start off with a false smile if you don't feel happy, but it is about questioning why you feel the way you feel. I always like to start the day off by saying, how do I feel out of 10? You know, if it's a 3 out of 10, maybe I didn't get enough sleep, then it's like, well, what do I need to do to make that a 6 or even a 9? And then that's the priority for the day, to say, okay, I don't want to end the day as a 3 out of 10. I actually want to end it at close to 10 out of 10. So yeah, you know, some things are hard to measure, but if you say, how do I feel out of 10? That's one step forward. Thank you, Linda.
I love that, Nita. What great advice. Yeah, that's really lovely.
You know, it's really consciously recognizing it, right, Nita? It's taking that moment to go, how many times do we actually do that? How am I feeling right now? And how am I feeling today? And even if you're at a 3, you know, how can you get to a 4 even? Because sometimes we all know, listen, happiness ebbs and flows. You're not always going to be happy all day, every day, but it's catching those moments. And like you said, Nita, that was so great. It's like, okay, if I'm only at a 3, how can I get to that 4? Or how can I get to a 5? And how can I work on getting a little bit higher so that it's really, how do I get my brain functioning better and more creatively for my success and moving forward?
Also, what I'd like to say is at the end of the day, you kind of want to do a job for your brain to kind of say, right, you know, obviously we all say do a journal, but it's not the activities of the day. It's actually how it impacted you emotionally during the day. So if you met a friend, that made me feel joyful. If I had a client meeting and it made me sad, why did it make me feel sad? And because what that does, it helps your brain to process your emotions so that it doesn't have to do that when you go to bed. And so that's one less job, so that when you do go to bed, you do actually fall asleep.
I love that. One less job. That's awesome. I will tell you, one of the happiest people that I have had the privilege of getting to know this year is Deb Creer. And Deb, you knew I was going to call on you because you are, to me, the embodiment of happiness and spunkiness, as we've talked about.
Spunk. Yes, I spunk.
Yes. So how do you incorporate this idea of being intentional about happiness? Because you also have had your share of trials. So
Right.
how have you been able to really embrace this idea of happiness and make it purposeful in your life?
I think that there are, one of the things is to embrace the pity party. And because we do have times where we just feel crappy, something's going wrong, all these various things. I've had challenges in 5 years. I'm up to 19 surgeries. And so there are times where I just don't feel good, but I also know that passes, and that it's not healthy to stay there. But it was funny. I was remembering when you were talking that, one of the multiple times I was headed into surgery, I'm my usual self. I'm just yammering along and I'm, all this. And I heard one of the nurses say, "Oh, she must be nervous." And I said, "No, if I can make y'all laugh before you knock me out, this is probably going to be a better thing." Because I recognize that getting them to kind of lift their mood was going to help me in the long run. But, we were having fun. We were joking in the operating room, and obviously there are times that you have to be serious. But, when you can lighten the mood a bit, be a little bit happier, it just benefits everybody.
Yeah, I love that, Deb. That is, very much aligned with what Jacqueline was just speaking about. And Jacqueline, do you have any thoughts about how Deb intentionally creates happiness among those around her?
You know what? I love that. I try and, have a bit of a 30-second rule. And one of the things we didn't talk about is our brains in regards to our programming. And many of you may know about this, but our brains are programmable. That's why we have all the issues that we have, because our brains have been programmed. We have these neural pathways. They're like roads in our head, and they always run the same direction again and again and again. So, when I see myself getting stuck in a thought, something I'm thinking about that I'm replaying that's not making me feel good, I try and have a bit of a 30-second rule. It's like, okay, I got 30 seconds to think about this, and then I'm done, because I know it's just a pathway that I've created in my brain that repeats a negative thought over and over and over again. So set a timeline for yourself. It's that pity party where it's like, okay, great. I got literally, I'm going to call a girlfriend. I got 30 seconds to get this out of my head, and then I'm done. I am moving on because it no longer serves me. And when we start to look at what we're thinking about, is it serving me? Is it serving my happiness? Is it moving me forward in my life? Or am I just like, those conversations you have with somebody that have never happened, or you think are going to happen, or happened last week or 10 years ago, and you're still replaying that conversation in your head? And you know what? It's great. Give yourself the moment, have the time, then go, I'm out of this. I'm no longer, this is not serving me. I can't change what happened in the past. I can't create what's in the future. So let's just stay right here and move forward. And I think that's, Deb, that's what I hear a lot about, what you're saying as well. It's like, give yourself the minute and then move on.
Right. And just, it's the physical differences. I mean, when you're unhappy, you tense up, and so all of that just goes through your body. And when you're happy, you relax, and all those various things. And that, that's definitely one of the benefits.
I love that. And Kim Bergman, I'm going to call on you too, because you are one of the most resilient and happiest people I know. You are happy despite anything and everything that may be happening around you. You just cling to that. You are so resilient. You're so unflappable. You're so happy. And how do you begin to embrace that? You have to come off mute, but how do you begin to really decide that you are going to be happy sort of regardless of what's happening in your circumstances.
Well, you're right. It's a decision, right? And it's also, Jacqueline had mentioned that it's a habit. It's like building a muscle. And so, one of the things that I started doing, I too am a big walker, and we've got a small in-city lake over here. And so it's a great freedom because I'm in Dallas. And I have several years ago, because I grew up over here, I started just acknowledging and waving to the people that I'm past, right? And what I have found is that more often than not, they just are like, hey, but sometimes they're really surprised that someone would acknowledge them. And so I'm very clear that I get endorphins from that. That's how it started. And it's that connection, because it is a connection. Eyes meet with that. I mean, I do it when I'm in the neighborhood, everybody in their car. I mean, and it's back to what Jacqueline said. Well, you know what? Maya Angelou said it really well. She said, you toss pebbles in a pond and you have no idea what the ripple effect is. And my mother was good at this, and I watched her do that. And then she has left us, and now I get to see the impact of people I didn't even know will approach me and tell me the impact my mother had on them by a simple gesture. And so, but really selfishly, that's why I started waving, is because I was like, this is real clear. This is an easy way to get those little chemicals going. And so, but it really is contagious, and it just lightens the heaviness of our society. That's it.
I love that, Kim.
I think that what we all really want in our life as well is that moment there. You know what? Somebody sees you, right? You are being heard and you are being seen. And especially after our year of being behind masks and, our heads down and all the fear that's gone along with that, just that acknowledgement. And I do that all the time as well, Kim, on our seawall, is that acknowledgement, looking somebody in the eye and saying, I see you, right? And that's the big part for so many of us, right? Is that I see you and I am hearing what you're saying. And that alone creates such a shift, for so many people. And it doesn't have to be just a homeless person on the street. It's each other as well. And that interconnection with each other and that intention. As soon as you start feeling that and recognizing that, it's like, oh, I'm going out to they call it your helper's high, is literally what it's called. It's like, I'm going out to get my fix. And so I do that myself, to go out and get the fix every day. It's the best drug on the planet.
And you know what? We talk about the negative so often, like negative. What is it? Negative. We're prone to negative feelings. If we just don't think, that's where we're going to go. But what's been so much fun in my neighborhood? These people in these cars, they're looking for the wave now. I didn't see that coming. I mean, these people are driving. And it's like, it's just made an uplifting neighborhood that these people are they'll do it first. And I'm like, holy mackerel, because we are so drawn to happiness and joy. And it is about, I see you.
I love that, Kim. Yep. And what great commentary, Jacqueline, to recognize the importance of being seen and heard. I see Precious has her hand up. And so, Precious, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say that one of the things that helps me with my happiness quotient, and it's totally great, I love the dose, I'm going to work on that, is when I'm getting overly stressed, I'm focusing on things and not people. So when I stop and say hello, when I make eye contact or a head nod, or someone holds the door for me and I choose to really appreciate that, or they give me a cart at the grocery store, it's about people again. So when I'm focusing on stuff, it's crazy. But when I'm focusing on the people and the simple things in relationships that mean the most, such as acknowledgement, and then actually acting on that acknowledgement and speaking to people, I get to watch their moods change. And mine does too. And I like how I think Deb said how she made them laugh at her surgery. How awesome is that? I want the people who are working on me to be in a good mood. So when we are able to add some pleasantness and some joy and cause people to smile, because they're likely struggling with that too. It's like a mission. So for me, being able to connect with people, I'm all about relationships. That changes the mood for me, because sometimes I don't get all the things on my list done, or it's maybe I don't need to. But when I connect with the people, it reminds me of what's going to last, because this other stuff's not going to last. But it's about the connections and the people. That helps me a lot.
I love that, Precious. Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge that Precious is one of our most recent Lead Hership Global members. She just became a part of our community. Yay! So I want to celebrate that too. But I love that great guidance and that great insight, Precious. Thank you so much. Jacqueline, any last final thoughts and words as we wrap up our conversation today?
I just want to check in. Bridget, did you have a comment to make? I thought I saw your hand up earlier, and you just have such a great, beautiful smile there. I just wanted to check in before we go.
Yeah, actually, yes. I remember what I wanted to say. It's when I feel crappy or down and I cannot help myself in the moment, the one thing that always helps is making someone else happy. Just do something really good. It's what you have said before with sustainability and well-being and giving back. It's just giving something, either advice that is asked or a nice compliment, or just as also Precious just mentioned, it's like acting on others and acknowledging their presence. And so I think that already sets the stage, and it puts you on the next level, and it's an energy that you get. It's so positive, and then suddenly you are fine for the day, and it's happy and makes you happy. So it's all about happiness, as you said. Yeah. So that's my bridge to being happy, if I do not find my own way to get there.
Exactly. You know, I always say this, that when you are the light for someone else, it lights your own light from within. And, you know, when we can do that for others, and we feel that light from, you know, I always say, you know, my purpose is to give, but really I realize that I love giving so much because it just makes me feel so good. So yeah, you know, when I can be that for someone else, I know it lights me up from the inside, and I feel like I can conquer the world. And when we can go into our businesses and our lives and our family with that feeling, knowing that we can be that light for others, is the moment that the shift starts to happen. But just remember that happiness is a practice. You know, I said this in my TED Talk, it's a daily habit, like brushing your teeth. So if you brush your teeth every day, you can practice happiness every day. You know, you don't want your teeth to fall out, so it's why we brush our teeth. You don't want stress and anxiety and depression to take over your life, so practice happiness every day. Find out what works for you. It's different for every single person on this planet, as your fingerprint is different. Happiness is different. You know, it could be meditation, it could be walking, it could be giving, but find it. Answer that question for yourself. What makes me happy, in the simplest ways that have nothing to do with money, don't have a lot to do with the outside world, but what lights your light from the inside, and practice that every day. Make it your routine. Gratitude, flowers, you know, friendships, whatever it is, but make that connection, make it your daily practice, and you're going to see your life shift and create, and you're going to be able to deal and become more resilient to what life throws at us. That's not going to stop. Life's going to keep throwing you stuff constantly. But what you're going to find is that you're going to be able to deal with it better. Your stress levels and anxiety will not go up as high. You'll be more calm and able to handle the tough stuff that comes in, because you know how to regulate yourself through the happiness practice that you've started.
I love that, Jacqueline. Thank you so much. And I will tell you that I feel like today's conversation about the importance of how to build happiness and well-being in your life and how to bring it to your business, your employees, your family it's interesting, because it's not a conversation we often have, but it's so fundamental. And I love, Jacqueline, and so appreciate the fact that you help break down and really explain how the simple act of making happiness a priority can actually impact your business financially, how it can carry through to the lives of your family, and how it can change your own body chemistry. I feel like that was incredibly, as I said, inspirational and uplifting. So thank you so much. For those of you that are joining us as a guest, Thank you. Thank you for spending an hour with us in this really instructive, incredibly uplifting, inspirational conversation with Jacqueline Way. I am thrilled to have welcomed you to the program. And if you're interested in learning more about the Lead Hership Global community, please don't hesitate to reach out. It would be my privilege and honor to be able to connect with anyone here who is a guest so that you can learn more about this amazing community of remarkable women that are leading in business, entertainment, and politics. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week, a wonderful day filled with happiness. Thank you.